What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. I'm excited for this one because I had absolutely no idea how to rank the three players in this video before making the video, and that's not great because this is a decision that pretty much anyone with a late first round pick is going to have to make. Maybe it's not for all three, but probably for two of these running backs, and so it's a really important one for us to know and to break down. I will tell you guys the results for standard half PPR and full PPR. They are different from every format, but the breakdown itself for the video, we're going to be talking about half PPR scoring again at the end. I'll tell you how that's going to change. If you want to see my exact rankings, every scoring format, every league size for all players, so also how wide receivers, tight ends, how those kind of mix in with these players as well, you can see that at the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. For this one, it's going to be Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, D'Andre Swift. So, how do we break these guys down? We'll start off with career production, and you can kind of separate them into two groups. We've got Mixon and Dalvin Cook, both entering the league in 2017, which therefore would make this their sixth season in the NFL. Swift, on the other hand, was a rookie in 2020, and so this is his third year in the NFL. And the name of the game for Cook and Mixon, at least as far as the public is concerned, has been injuries. When healthy, both have crushed, but their issue has been staying on the field. Cook tore his ACL in week 4 of his rookie season and has since missed between like 2 and 4 games each year with like shoulder, hamstring, groin injuries. He hasn't had a major injury since 2018, so it has been a lot better in recent years, but he's a good bet to miss probably 2 or 3 games this season. In terms of half PPR points per game since his rookie season, he's been the running back 9, 20, 3, 2, and 11. So definitely a little bit of variance there, but overall, that's like really strong historical production. We can be very confident in saying that if Dalvin Cook stays healthy, or even just in the games where Dalvin Cook is healthy this season, you're going to get mid-level running back one production, and he could certainly get lucky with touchdowns, have a few really long plays, and really go into like the high-end running back one production. We should be very surprised if he's healthy and he's producing as like a mid-range 2. He's going to be very good. And there's reason to be optimistic about his production this season. The Vikings have a new head coach, Kevin O'Connell, and that's replacing Mike Zimmer. And the big difference between these two is their style of offense. Zimmer, of course, as we know, loved to run the ball, while O'Connell is much more willing and wants to air it out more. That on the surface is going to have people say, oh, well, that's a negative for Dalvin Cook if they're leaning more towards the passing game. But honestly, I view this as a good thing for Dalvin. Carries are the least valuable touch in fantasy, and they open up Cook to more possibilities for injury. If they're going to replace a good chunk of his carries, and it's not like he's going to drop 100 carries for 100 targets, right? It doesn't work like that. But if he's going to replace a lot of his carries with targets, then I'm all for that. Receptions not only give you more points for the reception, they typically come with more yardage and a better chance of the play resulting in Cook going out of bounds, which is going to help him avoid injury. So overall, I just think this is a positive. The offense as well, if they throw the ball, is probably going to, sustain longer drives, be better overall, lead to more scoring opportunities. I just think they'll be better. And if they're better, that's good for the running back. So while they could certainly start the season slow, we've seen that at times when offensive coordinators change, head coaches change, like they try to implement a game plan and like it's a good game plan, but it's just different from what they've had. Maybe the first few weeks they're a little bit slower, but I think overall, if we look back on the season, it'll be a positive change for Dalvin Cook. As for Mixon, like I said, entering his 6th season as well, and injuries have, been an issue for him too. Since his rookie year, he's missed time with a concussion, ankle, knee, chest, shin, and foot injuries, ultimately missing 14 games over a 6-year span. Though, it's worth noting that 10 of those games came in 2020. And that's something I really want to highlight with these two. Dalvin Cook missed the most time in 2017. Mixon missed his most time in 2020. But aside from those 2 years, these guys have each played in 4 other seasons and typically only miss 2 to 3 games each year. And while that can obviously hurt you in fantasy, especially depending on the timing of those injuries, we need to remember that they're not alone. It's not like every other running back is playing all 17 weeks and these two happen to be missing 2 to 3 games. Among the top 12 running backs in half PPR scoring last season, only Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, and Najee Harris didn't miss any time. Derrick Henry missed 9 games. Eckler missed a game. Kamara missed 4 games. Connor missed 2 games. Fournette missed 3 games. McCaffrey missed 10 games. Chubb missed 3 games. Cook missed 4 games. Mitchell missed 6 games. And then if you want to throw Swift in there as running back 13, he missed 4 games as well. So I understand the fear of drafting a running back that gets hurt, but 62% of the top 13 running backs in half PPR points per game missed at least 3 games last year, with 77% of them missing at least 1 game. And with Mixon actually being one of the only 3 that stayed healthy. So I really think people overvalue the whole injury take on these guys. My risk ranks on the website, which is attached to all of the rankings, they take injury history into account and yet still have Dalvin Cook as the 2nd safest running back, Mixon as the 5th safest, and Swift at 22 only because he has less career production and is on the worst offense. But it's really not injuries. People just overweight injuries way more than they should. I mean, take last season as an example. We put out a video saying, well, the model really likes Mixon, says he's one of the safer running backs, and the video got bombarded with hate, people saying you can't even draft Mixon because he's always hurt. And then he goes out there, doesn't miss a single game, 5th most valuable running back to have drafted and kept. Because you can't predict injuries, and even if you knew he was going to miss a few games, so is pretty much every other high-end running back. It's not as important as you think. Please stop overweighting it. The only thing that I would consider with running backs, are they coming off, these major injuries and major surgeries? Torn ACL, torn Achilles, some sort of other injury that required surgery and rehab to recover from. Those sorts of things you can be concerned with because they're coming off of something. But for someone that's fully healthy, don't weight it. People weight it way too much. It's not that important. Back on track though. Since his rookie year, Mixon has been the running back 30, 9, 17, 11, and 4 in half PPR points per game. So definitely not the same exact ceiling that Cook has shown historically, but what he has going for him is the offense. Not only did they make massive improvements to the offensive line, but the trio of Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, with Mixon, of course, is better than the trio of Cousins, Jefferson, and Thielen. I don't know if it's by as much as the public thinks. I don't think it's a huge gap, but it's undoubtedly better, right? Having Burrow, Chase, Higgins, that's a trio that very few, if any, teams can match. But what I'm excited about isn't just that, that defenses have to game plan for that. They have to know, well, we can't still have to stop the run ever because they're going to shred us in the passing game. I'm excited about this offensive line. PFF has them ranked 8th the last time that I checked, at least, which is, a pretty big increase from a bottom 5 unit they've been for much of Mixon's career. Not necessarily every season they've been trash, but in general, the story of his career has been he's good, but the offense stinks and the offensive line stinks. Well, now the offense is elite and the offensive line is really good. So I don't think he's going to all of a sudden average 5 yards per carry, but it's definitely going to help him increase his efficiency from what we've seen him do pretty much thus far in his career. He's never really been a very efficient running back, so that's a very good sign for Mixon. Final back before we, circle around, talk about everyone here, is Swift. As I said to start the video, Swift will be entering his 3rd season in the NFL. He missed 3 games as a rookie, 4 games last season, but in terms of points per game, he was running back 20 as a rookie and 13 last year, which is pretty much the exact same start as Mixon and Cook had in their careers. Cook averaged 12.8 half PPR points per game in his first 2 seasons, 12.4 for Mixon, and 13.3 for Swift. So he's actually had a really nice start to his career. And I was going to say that that's extra impressive, right? Because Detroit has not been good, right, in his first 2 years. But then I looked back and I was like, oh, well, actually, similar things for the Bengals and for Minnesota. Minnesota was probably the best offense if we look at the first 2 seasons of each of these running backs' careers, 22.85 points per game, but 21.35 points per game for Detroit, 20.55 points per game for Cincinnati in Mixon's first 2 years. So I would say that, more on par with Mixon, but you actually can't say that Detroit's been so bad It's been super impressive that Swift has been good. All those offensive weren't like, incredible in each of their first 2 years. But I will say that I am excited about the leap that the Lions offense can make this season. I finally trust their coaching staff, and I do think they're going to have a chance to be like a really, really solid offense this season. No, they're not going to be top 5. They're probably not going to be top 10, but a really solid offense, different than we've seen in previous seasons. As long as, people can stay healthy and Jameson Williams can return to the field in, week 7, week 8, sometime around there. So where does that leave us? I actually went into this video expecting Swift to be last. But as I began to tweak the projections, it became pretty clear that at least in half PPR scoring, he shouldn't be. Before suffering his shoulder injury last season on Thanksgiving, I think everyone remembers that game, especially if you played Thanksgiving DFS. He had played 10 games up to that point, healthy in all those games. He had a season-long pace in those 10 games. 114 targets, 90 receptions for 714 yards and 3.4 receiving touchdowns. That's wild. And it didn't really come at the expense of carries. It wasn't like he had like 150 carries for the season. Like he was on pace for over 230 carries. And so when I saw him projected for more than Mixon, I tried to see, okay, what would it take to get Mixon back ahead of him? And I couldn't really figure it out. Like I couldn't give Mixon all that much work because we know they're going to throw the ball a ton to Chase and Higgins. We know that Hayden Hurst is also going to be somewhat involved. Not that he has a very high target share, but like I think the point was I really couldn't just jack up the targets for Mixon. And when I went to the carries and like the rushing touchdowns, I was like, I couldn't make that much higher on those either, even making him more efficient than last season. Like it took a lot to really bump him over D'Andre Swift. And as you can see on the screen, I'll have that pulled up. I have him projected for less, talking about Swift here, less than his 10-week pre-injury pace from last season. 229 carries, 80 receptions for a little over 1,550 yards and 13.5 touchdowns. And the touchdowns are elevated from what he was doing last season, but I was trying to figure out where the touchdowns are supposed to go. And like, if I think this is a decent offense, and by that I mean 19th in total touchdowns, like decent, but not, again, not top 10, who are these touchdowns going to? Like, I can't give Jameson Williams that many if I don't think he's back until week 7. It's not like DJ Chark is some touchdown machine. St. Brown's going to score, but like I already have him with a pretty good projection, well ahead of ADP. And there's only so much I can give to Hawkinson and Jamal Williams. And so Swift is going to be, and we've seen historically he's been pretty involved in the red zone. He's going to be a high touchdown scorer. And he's probably going to push for the league lead in receptions as well among running backs. And so he's one of those running backs that I love. Touchdowns are there. Receptions are there. Receiving yardage is there. Rushing is there. And you don't need to be, the league leader in rushing in fantasy to really good. And when someone hits on all of those spots, it's really valuable. Now, I will say all of these running backs hit on all those spots. We don't have any here that are like Nick Chubb to where sometimes you can be concerned if the receptions are going to be there. Or I guess like Derrick Henry sometimes, but Derrick Henry's kind of in a class of his own. All these backs are involved in the receiving game, but Swift has the chance to really push. I project him for 80 again, but he has a chance to push like 90, if he gets lucky, 100 receptions. And that's just not something that can happen for Dalvin Cook and Mixon. However, I do have Dalvin Cook first. I think his historical production is so bankable, and I do think he's going to have a really nice boost to his reception floor in this new offense. He's just been so good in his career so far when he's healthy, and given that he also only has 3 career receiving touchdowns over 5 years, like if this new offense is going to give him even like 2 to 3 touchdowns in the receiving game this season, and he's still going to have a ton on the ground and more receptions, like I just think his production is much more bankable, and there's really no reason, I guess, to rank him over Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is going to go first in every single format. And so another thing that I talked about in yesterday's video as well, twice, is a really good thing would be to say, I don't think people are going to rank Swift this high. So I have Swift right after Dalvin Cook. This is a really high ranking on him. It's going to be Dalvin Cook, D'Andre Swift, and then Joe Mixon for the ranking. But I feel like most sites are not going to do that. And so there's a chance, if you're drafting in the late first round, early second round, that you can get Swift in your second round pick. And boy, would that be a good start. If you could get Dalvin Cook in the first and then D'Andre Swift in the second, that feels like a really good thing. If you're taking Swift in the first round, you're probably drafting him, or at least like, where I have him ranked, which will probably be in that like mid to late first round, but right after Dalvin Cook, that's a really high ranking. You'd much prefer to get him in the second round. I think it's possible his ADP is in the second round. Regardless, my final ranking, half PPR scoring, Dalvin Cook, D'Andre Swift, Joe Mixon. But it changes. Because all these receptions are there and because that floor is really built on receptions in standard scoring, Swift is last by like a decent chunk. It's just really difficult for a pass catching specialist to excel in a standard scoring format unless you really think all the touchdowns are there. So the ranking for standard scoring would be Dalvin Cook, then Mixon, then Swift, and actually be really, really close between Dalvin Cook and Mixon. You could really just go with one you feel better about, but I would prefer to take Dalvin Cook. In PPR scoring, Mixon's actually last by a good chunk. The receptions you just kind of can't make up for between Dalvin Cook and Swift. But Swift and Cook are extremely close. It's actually Swift winning by 0.4 PPR points. And that's another one I would recommend. It's just the one you feel better about. If you were listening to this, like I am all in on the Detroit offense, I think Swift's going to be awesome. Take him. My projections say Swift will be slightly more valuable than Dalvin Cook in PPR scoring. But if that makes you a little bit uneasy, you're like, I don't know, I listened to this breakdown, I really do prefer Dalvin Cook. Listen, it's 0.4 points. That is 4 yards. Go with whichever one between those two you feel better about. I honestly don't know if I'm on the clock which one I'd end up going with. I would probably hope to play the ADP game. But at the end of the day, half PPR, it is definitely Dalvin Cook, then D'Andre Swift, then Mixon. But the rankings in PPR do have Swift, then Cook, then Mixon. So that'll do it for this week's player breakdown. Next week, I have scheduled Adams versus Diggs. If there's something else you want to see, let me know. But I think I'm going to do Devonta Adams versus Stephon Diggs. Let me know after that. I don't have anything scheduled for the following week. Not going to be a wide receiver. I don't like to do 2 positions back-to-back weeks. And so maybe running back, maybe tight end, whatever you guys want. Throw it in the comment section. Upvote the ones that you want to see the most. Also remember, I have the rankings up. Every scoring format, every league size, always available. And so you don't need these videos to always come out. You can just check whenever you have a duo that you're deciding between on the website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And if you are itching to get into a draft, but you have to wait a month and a half, try it Underdog. It's been really, really fun to do Underdog drafts this summer. I've been having just a ton of fun doing those with you guys and honestly on my own as well. I have dedicated Underdog rankings on the website as well, so you can upload those directly to Underdog and draft off of those. And you can use promo code FFA when you're signing up for your first account. They're going to match your deposit up to $100. That is free money. That is a free $100 that they will match. You're probably not going to lose money if they're matching $100 and you're using the rankings. So if you want to have some fun, you want to get into some drafts before real draft season starts to roll around late August, Underdog, use promo code FFA when you're signing up. That, my friends, is the end of this one. Hope you all enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? And how about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.